Hey everyone, Justin from OpenTech here. In this video, we are going to be discussing ways that you can build smarter and not harder. I'm joined by some friends of ours. On my left is Greiner with over 40 years in low voltage and access control. He is really the guru when it comes to installing access control equipment, security equipment, anything your facility needs to keep you ahead of the curve technology-wise. On my right is Noethe. Noethe is from Trac-Rite, part of the Trac-Rite brand family as well. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
Welcome.
Absolutely.
So we are here to talk about preparing a self-storage facility and getting it ready for the build process, whether that is thinking about exactly how you should plan your technology space and how you can scale, all the way to the doors and kind of the building process to make sure that we can give the best advice to all of our friends in the self-storage industry out there to make sure that they're planning ahead when it comes to a new build. I think that we have a good opportunity here to discuss the technology backend, but also with having Nick here and doing this with us, we can talk really about the doors and we can talk about the build process itself. So Nick, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Justin. I appreciate you guys having us out here, and looking forward to having these conversations and helping people out, planning ahead and getting ahead of things before things get too far down the road.
Me too. So when we're discussing and kind of thinking about things before you actually build your facility, one thing that always comes to mind is what are some stuff that operators never think about when they're installing their doors at the facility?
Sure, yeah. A lot of things happen before they even get to the installation process of it. When they are thinking about what they're going to be doing for their facility, a lot of the issues arise where they either have the wrong hole punch, or if it's a wrong latch, whatever the case is. The things that they need to think about when actually installing the doors is making sure that they have the right measurements first, whether that's the width, height, having enough side room on both sides of the doors to be able to have the openers if they do need something like that. And then just making sure that you have a trusted install crew that you have experience with that can install your doors and that you trust on that end.
Gotcha. So no slop, that's what I heard.
Absolutely, absolutely no slop. Making sure that everything's installed properly and running to tension properly before they leave.
Good. So, Rick, that kind of brings me back to what are some things when you're looking at a new self-storage build and you're installing doors, what are some stuff we need to avoid? What do you need to be careful of?
Well, the thing of when I was doing that math with you of 40 years, that was a little bit scary.
I called you out.
Yeah. The days of building storage of you have a gate, 2 keypads, and 4 cameras.
Yeah.
4 cameras, and 2 of the cameras are already told where to go. One's in the office, one's on the gate, and then your other 2, those days are gone.
Yeah.
And it becomes a lot more complicated with what you people here at OpenTech have done, which is all good for everybody around. The one thing is to have vision of what products, as far as on the access control, that you want at your property, because there's so many avenues now.
That's true.
So with that said, I mean, once you figure that out, you can go forward with how to plan for your routing of cables, everything else that you're going to put on the property. The biggest part is being caught of saying, oh, I want to do that now down the road, and adding something that you weren't quite expecting.
I agree. Right. It's about scalability. And I think that's kind of one of the main topics that we're going to really be discussing. And the common through line is how do you plan ahead and how do you scale? Also, if you could give us some examples, maybe that you've had in your experience of things that have gone wrong when somebody doesn't plan ahead, that'd be great. No names.
One of the things is putting cameras on the property that have to be put to a switch for those cameras to feed back into the office.
You mean like a PoE,
PoE
switch?
A PoE switch, and not having underground conduit for for the wire and concrete board.
Yep.
And not going there. So what happens? You get the concrete saw out. These are things that the access control person and the electrical contractor work close together. I used to look at a job and we would call the 3 W's. What are we going to do? Okay, that's a big question a lot of times. But once you can nail down what are we going to do, then it goes down to when are we going to do it?
The hardest part.
And that's a W. And the next one is who's going to do it?
Yep.
To work in those levels.
So who do you generally identify in that process? Let's say you've determined what you're going to do, right? So we have the access control. We may have some other technology we're putting in, but that's buildings and doors and gates. You know when you're going to do it. How do you determine who you're going to do it? Does that start with the general contractor?
A lot of times it turns to the general contractor because they've worked hand in hand with the access control person. And that access control person has to then entail working directly with the electrical contractor on the site.
Yeah.
And then that access control person also has to have a good working relationship with OpenTech.
I agree.
Because of the questions coming up and being qualified to do the job correctly for your equipment to work. I always said the equipment only works as well as the installation.
It's true. That's
if
true.
it's a bad install, I don't care what kind of equipment you're going to have, it's not going to work correctly.
Yeah. It just perpetuates problems down the road.
And that's what we want to avoid.
So Nick, being part of Trac-Rite, obviously it's more door focused, but if we kind of go up a couple of steps to the other brands, right? Mm-hmm. We have Trac-Rite Building Systems, we have Mako Rabco, everybody's kind of all in the same family. Do you, or your team along that process, do you recommend general contractors, or are you able to help people find general contractors?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that's one of the benefits of working with a building provider like Trac-Rite or Mako Rabco as well. We have over 100 years of experience in the industry working with self-storage providers and general contractors. So if you need recommendations or anything like that, we have general contractors that we work with all across the country that we can recommend for you guys. As well, if you do need to get in touch with anybody like that for subcontracting, anything like that, building providers, door providers, anything like that, we have contacts that you can get in touch with.
Gotcha. Trac-Rite's on the 125th?
It is, yes. We just hit 125 years this past year. So
happy birthday.
Yes. Obviously not all of it in storage.
They had storage back then?
So it started out more so with industrial buildings, airplane hangars type stuff like that. Then eventually got into the storage industry.
That's great. Yeah, I think or I would assume at least, there's a lot of partnerships that come with that kind of longevity and that kind of sustainability in this industry. So when you're working with a company, whether it's OpenTech or one of the other technology partners out there, even from the ground up building, what does that coordination between the different vendors look like? What have you found in your kind of journey through this industry is the most successful way of communication?
I think it's definitely, as Rick was saying, getting that coordination early in the process and upfront. We've seen many times where people think of stuff too late in the process, and it ends up being a big headache for them, or delaying their project in something that they weren't expecting. So being able to coordinate vendors that work together, partner together like OpenTech and the TBS companies early on in the process is going to save you a lot of headaches down the road. It's going to make that process a lot smoother throughout it, especially when we can just work together. All you have to do is pretty much tell us what you're looking for, and we're going to be able to put the plans together, the site layout, the mix, the unit mix for you guys. And then obviously you guys are going to be able to handle all of the access control, smart locks, any of that stuff that they need as well.
Yeah, I agree. And this is kind of something that both of you have said, and I'm echoing that sentiment, is you have to have your vendors have to communicate. They have to talk. It doesn't work when you're trying to pass the information from a contractor or a GC to the technology partner to the builder, and there's the owner operator in the middle who doesn't have time, who is also trying to run probably a couple other businesses, whether it's car washes or something of that nature. And it's really important, like Rick had also mentioned earlier, to bring us in early into the process. So, I mean, oftentimes especially when it comes, I can really only speak to OpenTech, but we'll sit down with our vendors and we will, I mean, I've talked to architects, I've done electrical planning with electricians who have much more experience than I do in any of this stuff. And I think it's become the most valuable. It's getting all of your partners together early in the process to talk and communicate, and then let them determine where they kind of start to fit in and what slot and what role they're going to play during this process. And I think a lot of that has to do with infrastructure planning, and that goes beyond concrete and doors, right? Absolutely. It's planning your electrical, it's planning your communication. So as an operator, you have to kind of try to put yourself in an operator's shoes. Is what does the word infrastructure mean to an operator, and what are some things that maybe they don't consider when they're thinking about their infrastructure? Rick, I'll direct this one to you.
Access control.
Yeah,
that's one of the last 100%. Things that they look at. I've had so many people building a facility call me and say, "Hey, I understand you do access control. Can you do a job for us?" I say, "Sure." "When are you planning to do it?" "Well, it's supposed to be done in a month." Well, it's done in a month. It's already being built.
Yeah.
So you go into it and they say, "Here's where this is going to go," and everything is not in the correct place. Then you have problems from the start that you're already trying to get fixed, and you haven't even done anything.
Right.
Just because of the planning. And most of the time, the people don't know that that's the way it's supposed to be done. So you're educating them, where if you would have gotten into the door a long time before that, you would have stopped a lot of these problems, and they wouldn't be a problem.
Yep.
They would be just say, "Yeah, we can do this because here's everything's perfect, what we want to do." And that's a tough one. And with the smart locks, the cameras, the motion sensors, the keypads. For instance, it used to be a double keypad for RV places. Now with the app on your phone, it's just a single keypad where you pull up. So there's no reason for the double keypad. Sorry, I'm not going to sell 4 keypads. You want to sell them 2. But anyway.
We're going to cut
that. But these things are all there where you can plan for that.
Right.
And the planning is it. And it has to be everybody. And having those weekly planning meetings with the GC and who's all involved to come together to talk. Because if I have to talk to an electrician about something, that electrician might have to talk to the plumber because there's a pipe in the ground here and blah, blah, blah. So you have to have that communication.
Yeah. And that's the most successful way that you can do it these days. I think that the technology has changed so much in the past decade. I've only been in this industry, and it's a little bit close to 20 years, right? So I haven't been here for a long time. Sometimes I'm here for a good time, but we've seen the technology evolve and the needs of a facility evolve. So what was acceptable 5-10 years ago, it's blown out of the water now because you have so much infrastructure that you have to plan for. So for me, when I kind of look at what I used to do with operators who are still around, they had that mindset of, well, we'll do the access control last because it's just a couple of keypads. Yes, you have to drill through the foundation. Yes, sometimes you have to cut up concrete, but there's really nothing else left to plan. Now we're talking about, we need internet, we need access points. Things need more power than, like we have more power needs at the facility for more devices, et cetera. So it's something that we're really trying to, I mean, it's almost like we're evangelizing it at this point, that you have to plan early, you have to have all your vendors in consideration for the infrastructure, because it's just going to be more expensive down the road.
Yeah.
It's just going to
it delays the process.
Yeah.
To your point too, Justin, a lot of people too in the storage industry, it's something that they do on the side as well. It's not usually their first or their most like first-time income. They have a separate job that they do full-time, and then they have storage on the side as well. So usually they're newer to the industry. They don't have a good idea of what is all needed for the infrastructure of the facility. So when you have vendor partners like the TBS companies, OpenTech, to be able to tell them and help them out on what is actually needed early on in the stages of the process, before they get too far along and have those headaches, it's very helpful for those new people in the industry for sure.
Oh yeah, like think about how many times at trade shows we've run into people, or how many new operators you've worked with who go, well, my granddad left me this patch of land or an old abandoned shopping mall. 20, 30 years ago when I heard about this storage thing, and you have to basically tell them how storage works, right?
You educate them.
You do, and that's okay as long as they listen, right? I like being kind of that source of truth. It gives us a chance to really help an operator grow.
Well, it's helping people.
Space. Yeah,
it's helping people obtain their goal.
Yeah, which is independence. I mean, we used to have a customer a long time ago who was a dentist. So this kind of goes to what you were just talking about. Is he was primarily a dentist. He had a facility that was probably about 2 or 3 hours away. It was a new build. It was his first storage facility at the time, and he would call us just to ask questions about proper ways to operate the business, how to like what people are experiencing in the marketplace as far as like lease ups and what their processes are, what new technology, maybe not even necessarily just OpenTech stuff, but what new technologies out there that people are excited about. So it's always really cool when you see it from that side, and the operators are bringing their vendors in almost like friends to say, hey, like, you know, how do I do this better? How do I do this? Like, what's more important? Or what should I be focusing on?
Yeah.
I guess
I've even had customers ask me, what can set me apart from the person down the street?
Yeah. And it's technology.
It's technology and it's planning.
But the problem is that sometimes they don't have that conversation early enough. And we're still talking about newer builds, right? Ground up builds.
Yep.
And then you're playing catch up.
You are.
And it costs money.
It costs a lot of money and a lot of frustration. And sometimes you might not even be able to implement something.
Correct.
And that's a hard conversation to have when there's just no way to implement something.
Correct.
And I think that, you know, I'm sure we all have kind of a lot of horror stories from some installations.
Those we try to forget.
Yeah, Rick could write a book series that will be available on Amazon, published by the.
It'll be about that thick.
Yeah. I'm the publisher, so look for that soon. But you know, Rick, if you kind of look back through just kind of your history of stories, maybe there's an example that we could learn from. It's something that you've run into in the field.
The person was going to put alarms. I know those are door alarms. Those are kind of a thing nobody does
These
anymore.
Are wired, right?
Yes, wired, hardwired door alarms. And every building had to have a RS-45 data wire to them. And they brought us in to do it, and there was no conduit going to any of the buildings. Starting from the office, where the gateway would happen to be.
Yeah.
I will call it the gateway.
The gateway.
Yeah.
And
they had to bring a concrete saw out and saw everything, and that got really, really expensive. It was a 600 unit, all drive up. So that was a lot of buildings.
How long does that take? How long would something like that take? As far as like the, you know, drilling up concrete or
well, they had to drill it in the jackhammer and then put the conduit in and then come back and pour new concrete and make it look as best they could. I think they were at it about a week.
That's a long time.
Yeah, costly, very costly. Where if a person would have been in a meeting there with the electrician, and there was electricity to every building because they had outside lights on every building.
Yeah.
So the trench was already there. And I always tell owners that are doing this, when that trench is open, throw a conduit in there, throw 2 conduits in there, because your trench will never be open again.
Yeah.
Throw it in there. If you don't use them, that's fine. It's just cost of material. But it's very costly if you need it in the future.
Yeah. And they're always there. I mean, this even goes between floors. So if you're building a multi-level storage facility, you always want to have some sort of an outlet between floors, whether it's conduit or it's like
a pass-through.
Some sort of a pass-through pipe or something of that nature, because we may come in, because we might offer up some sort of technology, or the operator may want to implement something that is new to the market, and that requires infrastructure all the way through the building. We have a product called OpenNet, and it's kind of the back end of a lot of our new products we have, like the ones that are sitting in front of me right now. Shameless self-promotion. Whether it's smart locks or our new in-unit motion control, they're all powered by our Wi-Fi backend, which we call OpenNet. And you need in some cases, especially between floors, to get the best signal, you might have to run conduit and cable and Ethernet and power between floors. So throwing that out there as a free piece of advice is if you're building multi-story, make sure that you have pass-throughs to your other floors because it's going to save you so much time. We were doing an install at a facility down the road and putting OpenNet in, and the low voltage technician that we were working with, he had to drill through concrete floors to be able to get data wires through. And it expanded the project. Luckily, it was only 2 stories, but it expanded the project over a week just because he had to drill through some concrete. You know, there's code enforcement. You have to have things inspected sometimes. And so always make sure that you're planning ahead to do that.
And that's where it comes in on what I called the 3 W's, is what are we going to do? And I know that's a tough question a lot of times to know what everything's going to be done when you're planning to construct a facility. But the more information you can have going first on it makes it so much easier towards the end to the next one. You know, then who's going to do it and when are we going to do it?
Yeah, because things are going to change.
Yes.
Right? Things will always change.
Yes.
You may have a customer that goes, well, I'm going to build 3 buildings. And then their architect comes back and goes, well, we could squeeze another, set of 5x10s here. And that's halfway through the project. Like, we need to do another building. We need to do different doors. And that's probably something you guys have run into quite a bit. I've seen that out on my travels where we're changing out door types and sizes and stuff mid-project.
Absolutely. It's something too where it happens even before the build starts, where operators don't think about stuff ahead of time, where it's legal, like zoning restrictions and local codes, stuff like that, where they run into that kind of stuff when they're building, when they do get to the building point of it, and it really gets some major delays in their projects. It's going to have to usually go back and have to redraw or redesign their projects. And then usually, like to your point, it's going to add a lot of cost as well.
Yeah. So. And it can slow things down. I mean, there's code enforcement, there's inspections. Somebody has to sign off that that's been done properly.
Yep.
Have you run into anything, to kind of set the stage a little bit? So Nick is the smart lock expert at Trac-Rite, and he's been kind of studying that side of the industry for a couple of years. And I'm curious to know if you've run into any installation issues or anything that's really kind of stuck in your mind as you've gone through this process.
Yeah. Initially, one of them that really sticks out was, like I mentioned before, it was actually kind of on the door side of stuff where the doors were punched wrong for this project. So we had, it was a little over 300 doors for it. Ended up being having to be punched in the field for the correct hole punch for the smart locks. That one delayed the opening for the customer. Obviously, I think it was about a week and a half. So stuff like that, delaying it ahead of time, just getting ahead of that stuff, knowing ahead of time, communicating with the customer for that stuff. But other installation headaches that we've seen is, like you said, if they didn't plan ahead enough to have either the infrastructure or the internet wiring, cabling ran to various areas of the property. That kind of stuff can be very, very costly later on. So I haven't personally ran into any of that stuff, but I know that I know that it's definitely something that causes a lot of headaches for people when I talk to them. So definitely talking to people or customers that are looking into smart locks and stuff like that. If they have existing facilities, that's always a question or topic of conversation that comes up. What requirements and stuff am I going to need at the facility?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from a top view down, every storage build is perfect. All the plans are right. Everything's correct. Nothing's ever going to go wrong. So
yeah, that's the perfect world that you live in. I don't.
That never happens, right? As someone who I've drilled thousands of holes for our smart locks. Rick, you've done quite a few yourself, and I think that what we've learned and why we're developing so many partnerships in the marketplace is that having those kind of pre-punched doors and having it done properly, like Nick was just alluding to, is vital to the success and the cost basis of something like this. So, Rick, you've done a lot of the smart lock installs as well, especially out here locally. So what are the benefits to you of having a pre-punched door that's punched correctly, that's mounted correctly?
It's night and day.
Yeah.
If it's punched correctly, one person easily can do it with ease. If it's not punched correctly, it takes that third arm, which a lot of times you don't have, and it just slows the process down. If they're not punched at all, key is to definitely have the template. The template, you have to have the template in order to get a good install. These things have to be aligned very good because of the battery pack, the way it sits in there and how it's compact.
Yep.
So it's very, very crucial to have that right.
That's good. And that's the evolution of the product. With the smart locks, we learned pretty early on that, like Rick was just saying, when any lock is sitting inside of corrugation, and I'm specifically referencing our lock, but this applies to every single one out of the marketplace right now. When it's sitting inside of the corrugation, it has to sit properly, because when you start riveting things down or bolting them in, it's going to pull the door into the lock. And so what that can cause is a lot of damage to the circuit board. It just puts it in an awkward position. Sometimes it doesn't lock properly. And it's very important that we get that right. So we developed a template you can put on the door. You can pre-drill everything. Rick and I did an install where we didn't have that template for a little bit. Somebody lost it or something, and we didn't have that template for quite a few days. And it was probably it took me back to the early development phases, because by the time we got the template, the last several locks went by like that. Yeah. Right? It was a few minutes as opposed to a few hours of lining everything up properly.
It's similar to building a wall that isn't plumb. You fight it.
Yeah. I've never built a wall.
Yeah. Believe me, it's the same. So with that said, you want it straight, you want it right the first time, so it doesn't go down the road and you have problems later on. That's what we're avoiding here. And that all gets with the correct install.
So that, we've talked quite a bit about what it looks like from the ground up, right? Someone's lucky enough and they have the ability to build a self-storage facility from the ground up. But there's a lot of facilities out there. I mean, we're over 50,000 some odd storage facilities that are currently existing right now in the United States. And for the operators that are out there and they have existing facilities, what are some options that they have? And Nick, I'll kind of start with you when it comes to doors. Let's say they want to do some sort of a renovation or some sort of a refresh on their doors in order to prepare for some of this technology that's been coming out. What are some of the steps they can take, from the Trac-Rite perspective?
Sure, yeah. So with the TBS companies, one of our companies within it is actually a company called Renew-Rite. So we partner with ABR, Accent Building Restoration, as well. So if anybody's looking for, new doors, refurbishment, stuff like that, that's where that brand of our company comes in and helps out with that. So we can do door replacements, any sort of repairs, stuff like that as well for you. If people are looking to, upgrade a full facility, anything like that, that's not a problem as well. It can be just a minimum of one door. That's all we need to be able to replace doors for you from Trac-Rite.
That's fantastic. And one of the great things about our partnership with Trac-Rite is that they will pre-punch the holes for the locks. We've done a lot of work behind the scenes together as a team to make sure that they understand from a millimeter how to position how the locks are positioned on the door, where to punch them, how to account for any slop that's out there, doors that aren't necessarily installed plumb right off the bat. And I think it's been a really beneficial partnership for us. We did a build out in Wyoming together. This would be about a year and a half ago. I believe it was in Wyoming. So myself and one of the guys from my team, we went out there and we did an install with those latch holes pre-punched. And it was like Rick had said, it is night and day. Because by at that point, we'd installed so many locks that we knew what we were doing. And it was like, well, we can just drill these out. We had the template, it's fine. And then we pull up to the facility and unbeknownst to us, the doors were punched. And it was like, oh, we just get to put the locks on the door and screw the nuts in, right? No problems, nothing went wrong. That's a lie. But it cut
Is that perfect?
it cut our install time down, to a fraction of what it had been.
Yeah.
And I think that was a huge benefit. And that's probably unbeknownst to you that had happened, because we absolutely didn't know that had transpired when we went to do that build. And I think that those kind of efficiencies those kind of efficiencies are something that really help the process go smoothly, especially when you're installing new equipment, access points, when you're running internet to different places, when you need to account for the new technology that's out in the field and you're trying to scale. That word that everybody's always saying in this industry is, how do you scale? How do you get bigger? How do you think ahead? How do you future-proof your facility? So when an operator reaches out to someone like us, whether it's a door partner, low voltage technician, or an installer, and they're a little late in the build process, let's say the concrete's already poured, maybe their facility's been open for a while and they're going through kind of a renewal process. What are some things that they can do to save themselves time and kind of help implement this technology without necessarily having to strip down the whole facility?
Well, you can do your wireless. So there always is avenues. It's that avenue that whenever I walked away from a job, I wanted to know that job was going to work. And it was going to work correct for the customer. Yeah. Just like with your stuff you sell and your things you sell, you want it to work for the customer. We're not out here in numbers.
No.
We're just out here to make sure that it's a satisfied customer when we leave.
Yeah.
And those things, if you can get that taken care of and know in your mind that you've done the best you can for what you have, but that goes back to the planning as well. There's always a way to do it.
Yeah.
It's true. How much money do you have?
Yeah, and time.
Yes.
You have to think about the tenant side of this too, right? So if you're replacing doors or you're installing something like smart locks, if you're doing something that's a little bit invasive, even installing new access control, when you're switching from an older, unsupported access control system to a newer one like OpenTech, there's a level of communication that has to happen to the tenants to make sure that the process is smooth for them too. Because the most important person in this whole process, the most important person in this entire industry is the tenant. I'm curious to get everyone's thoughts about what it looks like to them from a door replacement side, as well as from the access control and the installation side. And Nick, we'll start with you. Is like, how important is that tenant communication? And what are some of the ways that an operator can go about communicating with their tenants to let them know that this big upgrade is happening?
Yeah, so it's, to your point, it's very, very important. Obviously, the tenants are the most important person for any facility in the country. So when talking about door replacements or anything like that, and talking to your tenants or your customers or making them aware of it, one of the best ways to go about it is either just sending out emails or sending out some sort of market blast to them.
Like a letter or something like that.
Letting them know that, hey, we are going to be planning this sort of upgrade here in the next couple of weeks. This is our planned date. If you would like to come in, remove any sort of items or anything like that from your unit, please feel free to do that before this date, that type of stuff. Some people do like to be there for the actual day of it. That is an option for them as well if they'd like to, but just making them aware of it ahead of time so that they do have that option if they do need to remove anything.
Yeah, for sure.
And I couldn't agree more. I know a lot of companies probably don't want to do a mass mailing.
Right.
But that is the great way to do it, because we sent you a letter. Yeah. We sent you an email. We gave you the scope of work. We gave you the dates that we're going to be done. If you want to be here, we will make, if it's a lock change out, all the attempt in the world to do it while you're there. Yeah. And there's no reason not to, if that's what they want to do. But the communication of that between the customer, so the customer has no surprises. Yeah. It takes the surprise factor out, because nobody likes to be surprised on something. And then, let alone if they're doing smart locks, they've got to understand how the new smart lock works so they can get in their unit.
Yep.
And at that point in time, it's a good way to explain it maybe in a letter or an email of what's going to take place, and to stop in the office and we'll educate you of how it's going to work.
Yeah, and I think it's a good opportunity to to really market to the tenants, right? It's an exciting thing. These are upgrades, right? You can call it whatever you want. You can call it future proofing. You can call it scaling. When you're putting new technology into the facility, especially something like a smart lock or OpenNet, with like the Wi-Fi side of it, in-unit motion sensors, that the tenant has some peace of mind and visibility into what's happening in their unit. You have to talk about it. And you want to play it up. It's marketing it to the people that are already at your facility and who are already kind of part of your facility's story, and making sure that they stay and that they feel comfortable and they go, oh, this is turning into a premium experience. This is not just a metal door and some concrete where I keep my old sofas. Like, these are people that care about my stuff and that care about my experience at their facility. So taking that time to make the phone calls, to send out the letters, to send out the emails, and really explain to the tenants what the benefit is, helps kind of draw them into the process and makes them a part of it. And then, like Rick just said, gives you an opportunity to train them how to use it.
Correct.
The success of any new technology or any new feature you put into your facility is making sure that the people that have to use it are bought in, and they can't buy in if they don't know how to use it.
And a lot of people are scared of
that's
something
true.
of new technology, and their change is tough sometimes. But once they see it, and to an owner's side of it also, we just set apart from the person down the street, from maybe our competitor.
Yep.
And that makes a happier tenant. And that tenant's happy. They're going to tell other people about, hey, I had a really good experience at this property, and here's why.
Yeah. The more competitive differentiators you can put into your property, the better. I think, looking at the most recent SSA demand studies and some of the other literatures that have come out from the tenant management side, those companies in the space, is we're seeing a real uptick in features that tenants are looking for. Tenants are not just looking for what's the closest and what's the cheapest. Some of them are looking for additional features. They're looking for premium solutions, electronic locks, notifications, motion sensors. And it blows my mind, right? Because I've never seen that type of data on paper before. And so it's really important to be engaging your tenants. It's really important to be, when you implement this new technology, it doesn't matter if it's a door, if it's smart lock, if it's some sort of Wi-Fi infrastructure, tell your tenants what you're doing, because they're looking for amenities now. They're not just trying to find the closest place they can dump their stuff at 8 o'clock at night on a Saturday. A majority of them still are, and that's still like a very valid thing, but we're starting to see real documented statistics that tenants want more features. And that's why it's important to be setting yourself up at your facility to scale. And kind of the whole purpose of this video, right, is how do you do it? So taking a higher level view, and having said that, when it comes to the growth of a facility, and this is a pretty open-ended question, I think, when it comes to the growth of the facility, what are some key considerations that operators should think about when it comes to growth, when it comes to scaling, when it comes to tenant benefits?
I think from my side of things with the TBS stuff, as we've been talking about obviously a lot here, is it comes early on in the process. So if somebody's going to be looking to scale or want to grow later on, they need to think about that in phase one. So when they're building or planning phase one, think about, if this does well, I want to have room to grow and build more. So give yourself that opportunity to grow and build more phase two, phase three, whatever the case may be, early on in that stuff. So that way you don't kick yourself later, say, wow, I wish I would have had more room to be able to build more. Yeah. So for us, a lot of that stuff comes early on in the process, but I'm sure it's a little bit different for you guys on that end.
Yeah, I think it can be. We have a lot of flexibility on the technology side and the installation side, but like Rick has said, sometimes you got to cut through concrete and sometimes you have to have a plan to cut through a lot of concrete. And so I think that has to be taken into consideration, right? When you're looking to do upgrades, when you're looking to do more infrastructure planning, you have to look at all sides, and you want to bring all your vendors together. We sound like a broken record when we say that, but
but it's so important. It's so important to have that communication with who's going to do it.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's
Who?
one of the W.
One of the W. W number.
Who is going to do it?
W number 3.
And it isn't going to be, well, we're almost done. Now who are we going to get to do it?
Yeah.
It's who's going to do it. And a lot of times with the growth, you're limited by size of land that you own.
Yes.
But one of the things that's really important is to know what area you're in for how many 5x5s you would need, how many 5x10s, drive ups, et cetera, et cetera. We had, talking about this, we built a facility, and it had 10 by 20s, I believe, in it. Well, the owner all of a sudden, before he rented the building, decided he wanted an interior 5x5s too.
Oh.
So we had to tear out units, put hallways in, cut the units, put the the lighting, everything before one unit was rented. But that was lack of, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
I must have paid out for him. He paid the bill and did it. But something like that, that should be known up front.
Right. And to your point too, where vendors talking to each other and everything too, with building, and if you're building new, and if you are thinking about having access control or smart locks at some point in the future, even if you're considering it down the line at some point, it's great to have those points of power or electricity run to the different points of the project, in case you do want to implement that stuff later on. So just thinking ahead, to Rick's point, and making sure that stuff is there ahead of time.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, because you're not going to stop making fancy stuff. I know you guys.
No. We got plans.
You got bigger plans. Yeah, you got plans.
We've got plans, and we're about at OpenTech, right? Our goal is to remove friction in the whole process. So operational efficiency is important, but also removing friction for the tenant, giving them an enjoyable experience, something they'll remember and something they can be comfortable with. And that's what this technology is all about. The more you can plan for it ahead of time, the more you can get all your vendors to talk to each other, the better. I'll hop on the phone with anybody, right? I will get on a phone and meet with my customer's lawn care guy to go over anything that comes that comes with it. I don't know. I'll have a good example for the lawn care guy. I don't do lawn care. But
you'll probably be doing OpenTech here pretty soon. You'll have to.
But I think in closing, as we kind of wrap this conversation up, it's just reiterating everything we've talked about for the past little while here is get everybody on the phone, get everybody looped into the email, just communicate, send the plans out to everybody. You don't want to be operating your business, launching your business, or refreshing, renewing your business with everybody involved in silos. It does not help anybody in this scenario. But, I appreciate you guys coming to hang out with us today.
You're welcome.
Again, Nick Noethe is from Trac-Rite. Trac-Rite is actually an authorized dealer of OpenTech equipment when it comes to access control, smart locks, smart motion, anything that we have in our offerings. These guys can help you out. If you are looking to just come directly to us or you want some more information or to talk to us, you can find us online at OpenTechAlliance.com. All of our contact information is there. Rick is a honorary authorized dealer of our OpenTech equipment. He's been a longtime friend of our organization and has bailed me out of more jams than I can think of in most of my storage career. So I appreciate you guys coming on and chatting with us today.
Thank you very much for having us.
Happy to be here.
All right. Bye.
Thanks, guys.